Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. Today I'm back with some tips and tricks sent in by subscribers just like you, and I got some really neat things today. I think you're going to enjoy this, so let's get started. Before I get started today, I want to give a quick shout out to the organizers who invited me to speak at a recent Men's Shed organization. And there you can see in the background, there's the plaque that they gave me. If you've not heard of it, and it was new to me up until a few months ago, it's basically a combination of a makerspace and a woodworkers guild sort of all rolled into one, and a great place where men get together and build things and just enjoy one another's camaraderie. Just a great organization. I really believe in what they're doing. I'm not going to speak about it anymore today. I'm going to put links in the description box below, and there's going to be links on Woodwork Web. You'll be able to go over there and check it out, because this might be something, if you're in a smaller community, this might be something you want to help sponsor. So let's get started with some tips and tricks. This tip comes from Mike, and Mike is using a full extension drawer glide to attach tools to it. And I've set up sort of a mock-up of what he had here because I don't have a really good place to do it. And also this is a 16-inch. You can get these, of course, in much shorter lengths, which is what he did. So have a look over here. So I've just made a mock-up here of what Mike's idea is so that you can get a little bit better idea. So basically what you have is magnet. There's different ways you can put magnets on here, a strip of magnets. I've got this little wooden board here with magnets on it, but it would sit underneath. It would be narrower and sit underneath a shelving unit or maybe a cabinet like this. And then to get your tools, you basically just pull it out from underneath the unit, and now you've got access to all your tools. You take off whatever it is you need and slide it back out of the way. I thought it was a great way of having quick access to tools and moving them out of the way, getting them out of drawers like I have mine. So that's a great idea. Thanks, Mike. So this tip comes from Joe, and Joe says sometimes we have screw heads that we want to make a little bit smaller. Maybe there's a place that they fit into that's only a certain size, and we may want to use on our grinder, we may want to grind that down. And what I do very often, I'll grab a pair of pliers and turn it like that. The only problem with pliers, of course, is they slip because they're not being held. They're only held on two sides. And his suggestion, Joe's suggestion, is to just get a scrap piece of wood, easy to find in your workshop, and now you've got equal pressure on all sides, so it's a much easier way of grinding. And I use this, but what I do, I usually find an old dowel. I can find an old dowel quickly, and that way you can actually just spin it around on the dowel. In this case, it's just an old handle. I don't throw anything out. I always find a use for something. So either way, this is quick and easy because you've got scrap wood in your shop, and works just as good. So that's a good tip, Joe. A good way of getting those heads ground down nice and smooth and even, and not having them flip out of your hands with pliers. This tip comes from Laura, and Laura says whenever she's marking using her tape, what she does rather than mark with a pencil somewhere, what she does instead is just put a little indentation at precisely the area that she wants to mark, and that way she can put her pencil right in that indentation so she knows exactly where it is. Then you just move your square up to that and you can mark there and get a perfect line. There's no variation on that. It's absolutely precise. So that's a really good tip. I've not seen that before. Thanks, Laura. So the next thing I'm showing you here is actually a little product. It's not really a tip or a trick. Something, I think this is fairly new, but I'm not sure. But I think it's really cool because what you can do with this product, with a stencil, you could put this little torch paste on, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And then after it dries for a couple of minutes, you can hit it with a heat gun, and it will actually burn. It looks like it's been burned into the wood, and it stays really good. So you could put this stuff on boxes and all sorts of things that you make, but where I thought it would be really cool, you can make your own stencils, and if you have a logo and or your name, you could actually make your own stencils and attach it to the wood and etch it right into the wood for all the products you make. So in this kit, you get a couple of these little wooden discs that you can practice on if you want, and you get a little applicator and a little squeegee, and I'm just going to show you quickly how it works. So you just use the little applicator, you put some on like that, then you just squeegee it on, and this is like a little silk screen basically. I'm using it backwards here, and you just squeegee this orange material so that it gets onto the wood underneath. In this case, I'm actually using oak. You need something that's doesn't have a lot of heavy grain in it, because I've noticed when I've done some practicing with it, the heavy grain sort of gives lines, but you can practice and use whatever you want. And when you've applied all of this on here, you can take that off and save that so it lasts a long time. And then you just let this dry, and I'm going to let this dry for 2 minutes. I'm also going to warm up the heat gun, and when we come back, I'll take this off and we'll do some etching. Okay, so I've let that dry for a couple of minutes. That should be good. And I'm just going to take the stencil off. There we go. And you can wash that with warm water and then just let that dry. And you can reuse that many, many times. And there you go. I've rushed it a little bit, so I've scorched the wood a tiny bit, but that's implanted on there really strong now. You can take that and wipe that, and that doesn't come off. It actually etches on there quite well. So I just thought that was an interesting product that some people might be able to use for who knows what, all sorts of interesting things on wood. This tip comes from Ted, and Ted has figured out a way of using his pocket hole jig and using it for dowels. Now, I'm sure Ted will have a more elegant way of doing it than what I'm going to show you, but here's what I picked up from what he told me. So he mounts his wood in his pocket hole jig, and he drills one hole with his pocket hole drill. Now, the jig is set to 3/4 of an inch depth, so he starts off with that. Then he changes his bit, and in this case, I'm going to use a 3/8 bit because that goes in there, and I'm going to try and make it as long as I can. And what I'm just doing here, because I want to extend this hole a bit, I'm just going to put it at the end of my jig. Maybe you'll be able to see it here. This is just a stopper, and what I'm going to do is just push it through that last little bit. Now, the next thing I can do is put this on a piece of wood like this. I'm going to put it the way that it fits snugly on there so that I can use a clamp on there. And now I'm going to clamp that. And now I can drill through both of those holes. The problem with I don't have a really long drill bit. I'm not sure where you get something like that, but we'll still get an idea anyway. Okay, and now we can take a dowel and drive that in there. I don't know if I'm going to use a punch just to make sure it's seated. There we are. Okay, and there we have. Now he uses some longer material and cuts off the dowels up here on his bandsaw, but there you have a pocket hole converted into a dowel. And I can pull that through, probably slide that out of there, and that's what it looks like from the inside. I can probably put that back on there too if I wiggle it around a bit. Yeah, there we go. Now, I'm not quite sure where you would use an application like this, but it's something that you could use maybe if you're building some shelves with 2x4s or something like that. It might be something you could do. So anyway, it's an interesting application for using another way of using your pocket hole jig. Well, that concludes my video for today. All sorts of interesting things for you to mull over and maybe some things to try out. I made a few months ago, I made a video on pocket hole tips, and that video is right here. If you're interested in having a look at that, maybe there's some other things that you can use with Ted's idea and the tips video that I have over there. So I'm Colin Cadet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.